Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with us. This is still Breakfast Central on News Central. Don't forget, we want to hear from you. Use our hashtag NC Breakfast Central and follow us on our social media platforms at News Central TV.
Right then, we're going straight into our impact for today, and it takes us to Nigeria, where the Apex Bank, the central bank of the country, on February the 5th, that was last week, reminded banks in the country that they were prohibited from dealing in cryptocurrency or facilitating payments of cryptocurrencies. Now, the CBN directed the banks to close all cryptocurrency-related accounts in the country.
Now, the directive was addressed to all deposit money banks, non-bank financial institutions, and other financial institutions. The CBN referenced a circular it issued in January 2017, which cautioned banks and other financial institutions, as well as members of the public, on the risk associated with transactions of cryptocurrency. The decision has sparked outrage from mostly young people in the country, which is considered to be the world's second biggest user of virtual currencies like Bitcoins, according to Quartz Africa. Now, 2 days later, the CBN released a statement explaining why the action was taken.
Now, it said the Apex Bank banned cryptocurrency-related transactions in the country because the digital currency is used for money laundering and terrorism. Now, it added that the ban on such transactions will not have any negative impact on fintechs in the country. Now, cryptos is a digital asset designed to work as medium of exchange, wherein individual coin ownership records are stored in a ledger existing in a form of computerized database. Now, since the first decentralized cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, was created in 2009, about 30 of the world's 196 countries have embraced and expressed a positive stance towards cryptocurrency usage in their various nations and economies.
While the United States of America, Australia, Canada, and the European Union have accepted its usage by working to prevent or reduce the use of digital currencies for illegal transactions, crypto remains banned in China, Russia, Vietnam, Bolivia, Colombia, and Ecuador. Now, financial expert and founder of Awaba, Tunji Andrews, joins us to explain the issues surrounding cryptocurrency in Nigeria. Tunji, good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning. I know you've had this conversation since the ban was announced, but we still have got to break it down for those who are watching. Now, in the memo that was issued in 2017, the CBN said that digital currencies such as Bitcoin, Litecoin, and others are largely used in terrorism, financing, and money laundering, since most of the transactions are executed virtually. In February of 2018, the CBN also cautioned Nigerians against investing in cryptocurrencies, noting that they would be unable to seek legal redress in the event of losses, as they would not be protected by the law, and warned that such currencies are not accepted as legal tender in Nigeria. So in a way, we could say that this was coming. But looking at the reasons behind the ban, are they real and justified? Are they valid concerns that the CBN has?
Okay, we can start from the point where, first of all, it is not a ban. It is a reminder to its constituency not to enable cryptocurrency exchanges. So anybody can still do cryptocurrency if they want to. It's just saying our banks, who are part of our financial institution, do not allow this happen. Now, the CBN's conversation around it enabling fraud is true. I mean, it might be a stretch on the truth, but it does happen. As a matter of fact, there was a video that was going around as at yesterday of a young person who had tried to scam someone in the US and who spoke elaborately about how to use cryptocurrencies as a means to be able to get their funding whenever they, due somebody. So it is a valid concern. It is a real concern that a lot of them have. But I think there are ways that we could have better managed it. But the CBN, of course, sometimes can see things from a very weird perspective. So we support whatever they are doing.
You say, I'm curious as to who this we were talking about. Anyway, Tunji, well, how do we address, the issues raised by the CBN? They are a regulator, as we know, meant to protect the interests of the public. Now, Do you think a framework or perhaps legislation is in the works or will be? Or is it that cryptocurrency in Nigeria, perhaps from this move, is capuch?
So there is regulation by the SEC that was being spoken about. I mean the Securities and Exchange Commission. And the Securities and Exchange Commission is the commission that looks at things that are investments. So whatever is supposed to be an investment legal tender, it's the job of the SEC to look at it.
True.
So the SEC has been pondering the conversation of cryptocurrencies. But you know, the SEC and the CBN are in different purviews. They have two different conversations. The CBN's conversation is around monetary stability. And we must remember that a lot of things built up to this. So there was a lockdown, banks were not open, people needed money in the country. There wasn't any fund transfer that was open at the time. So what happened in that particular period was that a lot of people just turned to crypto as a means to be able to transfer money into Nigeria. And it became popular. And also in the middle of it becoming popular, it also became a means where more people could use for all kinds of weird and illegal transactions. But that is not to say that it was mainly for illegal transactions. So people who were in the US wanted to send money to mom, dad, younger brother, just use cryptocurrencies because it seemed easy. But the funny thing was that after the lockdown, they just kept on doing it. So it was a case of, it was convenient. And the CBN is uncomfortable with it for many, many, many reasons, because it shows inflow into the country without the CBN receiving dollars, and those people getting naira in the country for dollars that did not come into the country. It also is a way that they can't trace the transactions on the other side. You know, so it's a lot for the CBN to be able to manage. But I would say that countries like China are already trying to sidestep it. So they realize that their people have a strong thirst for cryptocurrencies. So what they are doing in China is trying to create their own cryptocurrency and banning all the other rest. So if you still want cryptocurrency, we have the yuan currency or whatever they are going to call it, but we don't want Bitcoin, Litecoin, and all the rest. So I think the CBN could have been a bit more open. But I will tell you something. As of yesterday, I was seeing all kinds of videos, all the so-called Bitcoin peer-to-peer traders talking about how they could go around the CBN conversation, you know, not labeling transactions crypto or anything like that, just to be able to go under the radar. And I worry about this because what it could mean is that we might have just unknowingly created a new underground network, which of course will later come to bite us in the behind.
And that's a very valid concern there, because many people, the history of crypto actually in a way comes from the dark web. And we don't want to send people back to sort of that place. But you mentioned the Securities and Exchange Commission, and I'll go back to that because in September 2020, that's when they actually released a statement on digital assets and their classification, which is basically crypto. And it talked about who would be regulated, what would be regulated, and the treatment of the assets. And as you mentioned, SEC's role is about investments and assets in the country. So when you look at these two differing regulators, because they're both regulators in the industry, when you look at both of them and you look at their approach to this, what does this tell you, number one, in terms of some kind of strategy overall for the economy and then for assets and investments, but also at the end of the day, who has the real power to regulate cryptocurrency in Nigeria? Or is it joint assignments that both the CBN and SEC need to be on the same page about?
I wish I could plead the fifth on this one. So the conversation is multiple. In any financial institution or any financial sector, there are multiple regulators that do the jobs. Unfortunately, in Nigeria, we have CBN doing the job of like 5 regulators in the country. And also, by the BOFI Act, Bank and Other Financial Institution Act, CBN is taking a bit of the roles of the Finance Ministry, because the Finance Ministry has, yielded some of these regulatory powers to the central bank. So the central bank has the power to do quite a lot of things in the financial services space, quite a lot actually, because the truth is that no matter how accepted an investment instrument is, if you can't trade that investment instrument, then it almost becomes useless, because the CBN is not going to allow it until at least they can be able to be assured that it will not affect financial stability of the economy. In the last MPC meeting, the CBN governor was talking about him hearing that there is up to $20 billion in remittances, and that he's not seeing any of those dollars anywhere, that he's looking for them. So those are questions that need to be answered.
Yeah.
But I will say that obviously one of the things you can point to is that there isn't a lot of communication between the CBN and the SEC, because for the SEC to come out just a few months ago and say, we are classifying this, and then the CBN to come out and say, we remind you that this thing is not a legal tender, it just shows that they are not having conversations. And I think it helps all of us if they do.
Yeah, Tunji, I really have to ask this because many Nigerians have said that perhaps this might be a way of targeting the youth, because this new trade of cryptocurrencies often happens amongst young people, young investors, businesses, and perhaps it's a way of perhaps clamping down, the use of Bitcoin, which was perhaps one of the mediums used in funding the whole NSAS process, as it were, last year. What do you make of such assertions?
I've heard it before, and I think it's for lack of a better word, simplistic. The CBN might be a regulator that we would prefer to be in different ways, but the CBN's conversation is always about monetary stability. I don't see why the CBN is going to go out of his way to target young people. For what exact reason? Anything that is about monetary stability, and some people want to point to conversations around locking people's accounts when the NSAS conversations were happening, but that was a conversation around, and they believed it to be national security. So
but the
that
CBN
is
also talked about laundering and terrorism as part of the reasons for
exactly.
Noting their banks also get involved.
So the conversation really is about these people coming into if you see some of the statements in the newspapers, you see things like them having conversations with the FBI about this being, and that there was a lot of illegal inflow of money into the country. And it is not entirely a lie. I don't know how much came into the country, but at least from the videos I have seen, they're all on the internet, which of course is weird, of people saying, oh, this is how we bring money. So if there was a scammer that somebody caught, and he was explaining how he does the scam, and saying that if you, all you have to do is just tell the person that you're going to give the person money, then the person will now have to pay a $200 processing fee, but then the person pays the $200 into crypto. Then the person just wires the crypto into Nigeria, and the person can go to a trader and get his cash. All those conversations are legitimate. So the CBN has a point. And the point is monetary stability, issues against fraud, and issues against terrorism funding. Because also there is a conversation that is how people like Boko Haram get their payments.
Yeah.
Can we make it secure is the conversation. We all have VPNs, don't we? We can trace the money, obviously. It's not only when you want to collect my tax that you can now open up my accounts and trace it. In the conversation of fraud, you should be able to do the same. It's the same process. So if you can do it with tracing taxes, then you should be able to do it with tracing illegal funds to terrorists. So I think the conversation with the CBN is that the CBN is using a big hammer to kill a small ant, but to say that they do not have a reason would be,
insincere.
Trying to hold it with kid's gloves.
Okay, so Tunji, it feels like there's a part two of this conversation, because people are wondering, are we going to see some kind of framework and regulation or legislation coming from the CBN? Are they using this as a pause, a stopgap measure, and then maybe 6 months from now we'll see something? But we'll get into that another time with you. We do have to let you go now. Tunji Andrews, financial analyst and founder of Awaba, thank you as always for joining us on Tuesday. Tuesdays with Tunji, I think I'll start calling it that. And we'll see you next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, have a good one.
Tunji.
So he has answered some questions, and I did read that 5-page press release that the CBN came out with to explain the restating of the cryptocurrency. And he said, as Tunji said, you can still do it, but you can't do it through these particular institutions that are under the CBN's regulation.
Good. So these institutions, which is our banks, right?
Banks and financial
Where do they
institutions
stand on this? Because they
were making money from transactions, and so there's still multi-layers
because they are the banks,
to it.
they're not going to be the intermediaries for your cryptocurrencies anymore within the customers. And the Apex Bank has said, no more from you guys doing this. They should have a say, because it's like we are the only ones talking about it now. The Apex Banks they've said, what about the banks?
And as Tunji said, I've seen some of those videos where people talking about how to get around this. And I feel like that's money going out the window. That's also driving people into the darker side of the internet that we don't actually want people to go to as well. So many people, I'm very sure, behind the scenes are pushing for the CBN to work out legislation and framework. But don't be surprised. On the continent, cryptocurrency is banned in Burundi, Morocco, Algeria. It's not recognized as legal tender in Namibia, Uganda, Zambia, and South Africa. So there's a lot of conversation in the coming years.
Yeah, people always argue that, yes, because in countries like Russia, China, and some other places, places where people see them as accepting regimes, right? But places like USA, Australia, Canada, and the EU is open, is accepted. So why are we going towards the way of the dictatorial, burdens rather than opening up? It's an interesting conversation, and it looks like we're not going to end.
And well, it'll be one that continues. All right, we're going to take a quick time out, but when we come back, Breakfast Central continues. Do stay with us. There is so much more.